Heads up.
Okay, it's 6:30, I'll call the meeting to order. Let the record show that Don Skillings and Jay Watt are absent. Jay may possibly come in. We'll see, I haven't heard anything of whether he'll be here or not. So in place of Don, Craig, you'll be assigned, and Rich, you'll replace Jay for this time being.
Okay.
All righty, so I'm looking for a motion to waive the reading of the minutes and approve the same.
I'll make the
So
motion
moved.
to waive the reading of minutes and waive the reading of the minutes and approve the same.
Okay, so Robin moved, Mark, are you seconding that?
I will.
Okay. I do have some corrections on here. So under item 2, item B of business, item 2 subdivision, at the very end, motion carried. Mr. Watt, that should be abstaining. That's just a typo there. Okay. And then on licensing requirements, that would be the second bullet under number 4. You have written, she's going to send me some, and I think that should probably be send the CEO some examples, and then change that to which will be presented at the next meeting. To clarify who me is. And then,
I think the me was actually Mel.
no, Mel was going to send you some examples, right? Of the licensing requirements, some standards.
Yeah, so we need that.
Yeah, so that should be CEO. And then the remainder of the sentence, which would be presented at the next meeting. And then, and then down further, adding a letter E after D, which is hearing no other questions, letter E. And I can give this to you later, 180-12, D, I think we should add, Mr. Watt moved to accept as amended, second by Mr. Doty, and motion carried. To send that on to the select board. And then under G, board member concerns, Mr. Christopher raised the issue of PFAS and wastewater that is brought in for treatment, and that issue is regulated by the state and the sanitary district. So I can give you the notes later on that.
Yes, please.
Okay. So other than that, any other corrections or additions to the minutes? Mark, do you have anything?
Just way down at the bottom, where it says the next regular planning board meeting, it added with 2 public hearings will be.
Oh.
I think we should just strike that with 2 public hearings.
Oh.
Yep.
Didn't catch that one. Thank
I
you.
didn't catch that.
Okay, so, you need to make a motion again to accept as amended?
I make a motion to accept as amended.
Okay, Mark? Do you
Yep,
se-
I'll accept that.
Okay, all in favor? Mark, are you in favor? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Since I can't see you.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, under old business, chapter 170 was accepted by the select board last night. There were no one commented on that other than John Martin's mentioned that it looked good, something to that nature. And so it will be forwarded to the town meeting. And what was the date of the town meeting?
October 22nd,
Thank you.
and I believe it's 7 PM. I'm not sure we set the time, but I think it should be 7 PM.
Right, okay, wonderful.
At the
Okay,
junior high?
Main Street Middle School.
took a moment for that to register. Okay,
Change is hard.
it is. Okay, moving on to old business, item number 2, comprehensive plan review. We need to move forward on that, and Madam Town Manager, is that something you would like us to continue working on, or to really get restarted on that, or wait until the joint meeting?
I would like to have a summary. I don't know anything about the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Except what's in the office, which I haven't really evaluated. I think it's definitely a topic that we need to bring up at the joint planning session. So it doesn't need any action before then, other than to say, review and refamiliarize.
Mhm.
And so that we know where we're at, what do we need to focus on, what needs to be the next step in that comprehensive plan? Because I think it is 10 years old now, right? It was 2014 that it was originally passed. And so, as I understand it, it has like a 10-year lifespan, and every 10 years you're supposed to redo it. So,
And Tim had revised it, all except for 2 chapters, 2 sections, and Audrey was going to work on the transportation section, and then I guess that got dumped onto your lap.
So, the transportation section is completed.
Oh.
It was done by my coworker, Jessica Cobb, who works with us still. She's our senior planner. So I can forward that to the group. There is some information and data that I do need from the town, so we could probably provide that.
okay,
So I can send that to you this week, so you guys can review it. I believe the only chapter that has not been done yet is the housing chapter,
Right.
so.
and that definitely needs to be updated, especially in lieu of 55 Weston Ave and the other things that are coming from the state on affordable housing.
Yeah, so I can take a look at that and give you guys kind of an idea at the joint session or the next meeting, the next planning board meeting, what that would
Okay.
look like.
All right. I was going to work on that, and I haven't gotten to that, so I'll review that again too.
We do have a
and-
template that we use
Okay.
for most of our chapters when we do comprehensive plans at KV Cog. So I can kind of give you guys that chapter too, and just, that will give you an idea of what data I will need from the town.
Okay,
Mhm.
So
perfect.
that way you can get ahead of that and get me that data, so that will give us a quick jump.
Excellent.
So if you want me to, I can get that for next meeting. So you guys can have the transportation chapter to review, and then the data that we'll need for both that chapter and the housing chapter.
That will be excellent, thank you. Now, if I understand, was the grant approved for working on with towns on comprehensive plans? What, wasn't Madison part of, or some kind of,
Yeah, I think there was something to do with Katie Cog, that they were applying for a grant for smaller municipalities, I think, that needed help getting their comprehensive plans updated. And I believe I sent a letter supporting that and
Right.
asking to be included.
I don't know if we've heard back yet about that grant. As soon as we do, I'll let you know. That was with FEMA. The difference between regular grants for working on comprehensive plans and that one is we would have to include within the comprehensive plan some type of discussion on mitigation and kind of hazard resiliency. So, which we kind of figured Madison might be perfect for that.
yes, it would be. Okay. Mitigation and hazard resiliency, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, so I think that's a good start for moving forward on that anyway. We'll be able to look at those two chapters and then,
Have you guys done anything as far as public participation for the comp plan?
not recently. That was done when it was originally written, 2014. There were focus groups for each of those.
Okay.
And then Tim Curtis, our former town manager, had worked on it and was had rewritten the other portions of it,
Got it.
updating those. So basically kept the same format, just updated the data on
Okay.
those. But I'm afraid that those, it's been 3 years, maybe 4 now, so even so, some of that needs to be
The
updated.
data moves.
So I'm thinking, in terms of a comprehensive plan, that we can look at the transportation draft when it comes, since it's almost finished, and then take the housing next, and then after that, start reviewing what has already read section by section, and whatever is deemed at the joint meeting, what might be the most important portions of those, maybe deal with those first, so.
And I think you sent us a file or something.
I did.
Yeah, okay.
I sent that to everyone except Craig and Rich. You do not have those, so I can email those to you. It's the draft as it stands right now,
Okay.
so that you have that.
I don't remember getting it.
It was last
I'm
summer.
looking for it right now, so I'll give you the date
Could you
that it
send
went
it
out.
to me too, please?
I did, yeah, I'll resend it to everyone, so let me make a note here.
If you'd like to send it to me, I
Yes.
could take a definite look at it and see if there's anything glaring that I noticed the state is missing for the state requirements.
And you said you have a template that you use, so if what has been written is different from the template, is that something we should revise those?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
our templates are generally based minimum of what the state requirement is.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I think if I can just go through it, and if there's anything glaring that's missing,
Mhm.
that is gonna be needed for the state requirements, I can let you know.
Okay, great. Okay, so I will get that out to all of you. And Denise, did you want me to resend that to you or not?
Yes, please, because God knows if I can find it.
Okay. All righty, so I think that takes care of it. Any other comments on the comprehensive plan review? Okay, new business. Pete Sirois approached me about a public transportation proposal and would like to have some input from the planning board, some thoughts and ideas and on that. And considering how we're working on the comprehensive plan and the concept of transportation being a big issue, something like that might fit, assuming a proposal would be ever approved, that would fit in or could be incorporated within that. So, Pete, would you go ahead and
Okay,
come on forward, come up to the
okay.
little seat there and give us a
Right here?
summary?
We'll share.
Good, oh, good, wow.
We won't bite.
Well, if you do, don't bite hard.
All right.
I bleed easy. Actually, I don't bleed that good.
That won't-
Originally, I'd gone to see Mary about, because I know Mary and Les from when my daughter was in the band. And see if they could, as a member of the community leadership, she could sign a letter saying that they would favor a transportation system for Madison that would include going to Norwich Rock, Anson, Norwich Rock, Starrion, and Madison, sort of, to the hospitals and the shopping areas and where people commonly go. Right? That's what initiated this, and Mary said, come to one of our meetings, and I'm here to answer questions. But right now, I'm at the stage now where I've done this pretty much on my own, and I can't continue to do this. It would be illegal to do so anyways. But I want to get a board or a governing board of sorts or an association established, which I'm going to talk about with the selectmen in a couple of weeks.
Didn't you already mention it to them once?
I've mentioned it to them, but not at the point of, as a board. I would like to form a board, become an official part of the organization within Madison, and I'm looking for guidance on how to do that. Because there are a lot of things online about it, but and it says you gotta go according to each town has their own regulations for what they accept as a board. So this is what I'm doing, and I'm also doing that here to give y'all, because sooner or later, I'm gonna have to come before the planning board. I worked with community development some years ago, and we had to work with the planning board back then. So I know that you're gonna become involved even more deeply eventually. And it's nice to hear that transportation is part of the, it's part of the discussion already. So that's encouraging to me. So what I've done so far is I've collected over 200 signatures from various people. Would you like to see a bus service? That was one thing because I want to get a grant. In order to get a grant, you have to have public support. And these signatures and letters are for public support. But it was also an education for me. So what I'd like to do is establish a board that's acceptable to the town of Madison and to all the leadership of Madison. And since there is no money, so it's gonna have to be a voluntary board, at least for the first year. The grant is gonna cover the first year of operation. You can't just start up a transportation system with nothing. You gotta pay the people that work there. So we're gonna try to get a grant to cover the first year. And after that, the revenues will cause it to be self-sustaining. It's gonna be a nonprofit, and I also had to look into that. But first, we gotta be an organization, and then we'll have to make that organization, I think it's called 501c3, I believe it's a nonprofit, and nonprofit status. That way, you can have money, and you can actually make a small profit, I found out, but only to cover your expenses.
Right.
You can't have a whole great big bunch of money, but you can't be broke either. You got to operate. So within operational parameters, you can have some money on hand, and that's what this is all about. So pretty much, I'm here to ask right now if the planning board will sign a little letter. I showed it to Mary. I don't know if she showed it to you yet or not, but just saying that you like the idea. It's not saying you approve it. It's not a board approval, it's not approved yet, but that you would like to pursue looking into a grant. That's what that's for. And that's what I'm here for. And if you have any questions, I even, at one point, I left my stuff, I drew up, number one, talking to people. Jeff was the first one that brought it up. And I said, gee, it would be nice if we had the school buses, and they sit idle most of the time, and so I went to another board meeting, the health group in Madison. It's called
Health Reach?
Health Reach, yeah. But anyway, they all know we can't have adults riding with kids. Okay, bad idea. So I dropped that one. Then I said, electric buses, that might make it easier to get a grant through these electric bus companies, because they want to promote their product, and we could be a springboard for them to show their product. And then I was pointed again by Jeff. He pointed out, you know, those batteries in them buses are very expensive, and they have caught on fire. Of course, I see internal combustion engines blow up on the road. I've seen them on the highway blown up. Okay, so I know that happens to them too. But people are afraid, and many people that I spoke to, they're afraid of the batteries blowing up. Now, I said, I'm not gonna go with electric buses. I dropped that idea completely. And if there's a board, I will recommend we don't get electric buses. It's a fear, and when people fear something, you can't expect people to overcome their fears. Founded or not, doesn't matter. So I dropped the idea of electric buses. And Mary gave me the idea, if you have 15 passengers or less, the drivers don't need to have special license to drive like a bus driver does.
Right.
So that makes it a lot easier to recruit bus drivers. Because if you have to get I forget what the license is.
CDL. Yeah, a CDL with a school bus endorsement.
Yeah, they gotta be specially licensed. If you gotta get that, you're gonna be narrowed down your field of applicants. So it pays to take the time and look into things. So this is where I'm at now. And I had another outline drawn with all kinds of routes and And I'm telling you, I work for a transportation company in Philadelphia. I know what a transportation looks like, and a good one. But it's kind of elaborate and probably will cost more than people are willing to pay to start. So, once we have a board established, I'm gonna start over with the board and we're gonna work out a better plan. But the basic route will be leaving Anson, going, taking the back route to Norwich Walk through Preble Avenue and Ward Hill. And it's not because I live on Preble Avenue, that's because that's the shortest route to Norwich Walk. And to Norwich Walk to the health clinic over there, through Norwich Walk, then take Route 2 to Skowhegan and stop at the hospital and go to the different business locations in Skowhegan and back up Route 201 and 148, back to Madison and then Anson. The next bus leaves 45 minutes later and goes the opposite direction. Now, the reason for that is to take the people back that went there in the first place, and it gives them 45 minutes to do their thing. And that's an average thing for people, usually short hospital visits are about 45 minutes. And you can usually do your grocery shopping. 45 minutes is a good amount of time to get something done, and then you don't have to wait all day for a bus to go back home.
Right.
And someone told me, and I haven't verified this, someone said it cost them $40 by cab to go from Anson to Skowhegan. I can't.
And back,
No,
one way?
one way. And that's $40 for one way, and it's $40, $80 for a round trip. Now, that's what I was told, I haven't verified that yet, but, I'm trying to think about $6 one way on the bus, and $6 to go back. So that's a lot less than 40. And it costs, I looked up what it costs to own a vehicle, $12,000 a year. If you keep your car up the way you should, maintenance and gas and tire, everything, including insurance, all that stuff, it costs you $12,000 a year, a little over $12,000. And you can make 300 trips a day, 300 round trips a year. Okay, 300 round trips for 1/4 of that, for 25%, if you take the bus. So it's much more affordable than taking a cab or owning a car. And some people can't own a car, some people can't drive anyways because they're too old, or they're too young, or they have some kind of background that doesn't allow them to drive. They still have to do things, they still have to go places. So that's why I want to have a bus system. When I took, I gotta tell you that, when I took these, I got things like this, people sign, has a name, signature, address, and town. And I noticed some people started saying, well, I'm not from Madison. Well, that's okay, from Skowhegan, Norwich, or Anson, that's okay too. Well, I'm from another town. You know what, I let them sign it anyways, I'll just get more signatures. That's to show that people in other towns are also interested. And if this works in Madison, Skowhegan, Namdrock, and Anson, it can spread to other towns. And the next thing you know, we've got an interconnection of transportation systems. Something to think about. And I'm gonna start off smaller. I'm gonna start off with 8 buses, 2 spares. I'm gonna start off now with 2 or 3 buses and 1 spare. And with the caveat that if this works and people ride it, we will increase it. I'd rather do that than start real big and fail. Yes,
So if you got the grant for just say 3 buses and a spare,
yeah.
they wouldn't give you another grant though if you wanted to add on the buses, correct?
Probably if it was successful, they wouldn't have to. We could build it up slow. You could add 1 bus at a time.
Okay.
And also, this is something that I didn't think about until I remembered. I went to Washington DC a few years ago and I had to use public transportation down there. They don't use money on public transportation anymore. They use a card.
Yeah.
It's like a debit card.
Florida does the same thing.
Yeah, it's a ridership card. And actually, that's good because no money, when it was like 35 cents a ride, it was coin, it went into a
Right.
box. We're talking dollars now. You don't put that into a box like you used to. And so now it's all these cards. It's like a debit card, if what it is. You pay for the ride and then you use it. So that has to be worked in too. So maybe we'll have to pay for these cards and charge people, people might charge to sell them, because they have to buy them somewhere. They use vending machines, when I was in DC, they had vending machines for it. But here we don't have vending machines for it, we'll probably have a couple stores. I think the dollar stores would be perfect for that, because that's where people without a lot of money go shopping a lot. And that's a place where a lot of people, and they're all, they're right in town, and they're easy to get to, and buy the cards there, and sell either 2s, 4s, or 10s, you know, rides. You can't sell, you shouldn't sell less than one ride, because they gotta come back.
Right.
So if somebody's really poor, they really need to go, $14 will buy them a card, but, no, I said 12. But we might have to charge $7 instead of $6 to cover the cost of the cards. Because when I worked out the figures, it was based on cash. But we gotta convert these cards to cash, and somebody's gonna charge for that service.
Right.
Everybody
so,
charges for everything, so that's pretty much what I'm doing. If you have any other questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Pete, so you want to form a board, it's voluntary, so you would be primarily looking for people from the communities, would you not?
Community, yeah.
Okay,
And I would hope that the town might advertise for us, I don't know if they would or not, like in the public announcements.
You can do that right on
Meetings
Facebook.
and so forth,
Honestly.
because that's where people look for these things. And of course, there's the social media today, Madison Community Matters, and now I'm on the Anson one too,
Norwich Walk has one.
Norris Wareham. So I'll try to get on all of them and publish information. That's how I did a lot of it already, through this what do they call it, the social media type thing.
Mhm.
And it does, it has its good points, I gotta admit.
Yeah.
Good.
so what are you asking of the planning board at this point?
At this point, the thing I'd like is that you put a letter on file saying that you think it's not a bad idea. Like I gave you a request sheet, I don't remember verbatim what it said, but that's what I'm asking for now. But I'm mostly here right now to let you know this will come back to you again in a more official capacity, in which case you'll probably have to either approve or disapprove.
Okay, it would only come back to us if there was a building, a structure.
There will be a building.
Okay, so that would be after the fact.
Yeah.
So in terms of a letter from the planning board, is that something the planning board is permitted to do?
I don't know, I don't know what your,
I'm
I don't know what
asking
your charter says.
the town manager, is that something boards?
I had the select board in Skowhegan already did it.
I will check and find out if that's something that can be done.
Okay, or is it better if it comes from the select board?
I would think it would be the select board,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
more after the planning board.
Because
if
we
it was-
don't regulate anything.
No, it's not a
So-
regulation, it's
Right.
you're a community leader, and you say, well, that's a good idea. That's all I'm looking for, because this is to get a grant. And if you go to get money from somebody, they're gonna say, do the people want it, do the leaders want it? And if I say yes, they say, show me the money, show me the signatures.
Yeah.
I
so-
gotta have something to show them that, yes, the community is behind it. That's all it says, it's not saying that you're obligated to approve anything.
Okay.
So I think it may be possible to just draft, if you have a moment to talk about it in executive session or something, and you decide you wanna do that, I don't think there's anything against the planning board sending a letter of support. It's more a matter of, is it something that may work into, the comprehensive plan through the transportation chapter? So, and if that's the case, a letter of support from the planning board would definitely be a positive.
All righty, so what we can do is we can put that on a future agenda. I'd rather take a look at the transportation section of the comprehensive plan, and see if, the needs for that, you know, that would support and be a critical part of the comprehensive
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything after that.
Right.
You're under no obligation to follow up on the letter. Just
Right.
say, yeah, we think it's a good idea. If they call you and say, did you sign that letter? Yeah, yes, we did.
Right. But we wanted something to base it on though, that
Yeah.
would be important, so. Next meeting, we'll have the comprehensive plan and, not the, excuse me, the transportation section we can review, and then, maybe, put that on the agenda then about public transportation and discuss this project, this proposal, for the next time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a question. I caught something you said, like the travel, like say this is our community, we'll go Anson, Madison, Skowhegan, Norwood. You said start here, go down, go around, come back up and come back. And then you said something about, and then the next trip would reverse.
Right.
It'd be 45 minutes. But in doing that, if you drop these folks off 45 minutes later, you go back to pick them up, these folks down here.
Right.
So
No, but the
just
thing
keep
is,
them going the
yeah,
same direction.
but the thing is, every 45 minutes, there'll be a bus going one way, then the other, then one way, then the other. What they're doing is, they're taking people, if we send people just around in the same route, that will never take them back to where they went. You gotta take a reverse route to get them back to where they came from. And it also will pick people up and take others along the way to those destinations and back again. But the next time, the bus going the other way takes them back. You see, you gotta have a return.
Well, they'd be returned if you.
Yeah, but they
get
would
on the same
return, but they
route.
have to go around the whole ring just to go a little ways.
Right.
This way, they go back the same way they came. That's what you do in transportation. That's the way it worked in Philadelphia. I don't know here, but.
You had a question?
Prior to starting this with the grant money, is there any plan to do a feasibility study?
Oh my God, give me a couple $100,000 and I'll do a feasibility study. It costs money to do studies,
Of course, but that's.
and I have none.
And, oh, go ahead, Craig.
Clarify the children thing you said.
Oh, well, the children thing was, I originally thought, wow, I watched the school buses sitting idle doing nothing all day. Why not use them for public transportation when they're not being school buses?
Because it would cost us.
But then you'd be outside. Then the other alternative is, and this is the way they do it in many other places, and I've talked with other people, other transportation systems. There are no school buses. They don't have school buses. They have public transportation. And the school kids get free passes to go back and forth to school and school activities.
But you said there was,
But there was people that said, I brought it up at a meeting, and they said, oh, we can't have kids with adults. Oh, that's bad. What they're afraid of is pedophiles. They didn't say that, but. Well, when people have fear, it doesn't matter whether the fear is founded or not. They don't have a problem with that any other place that I've ever heard of. But if people have a fear, you can't overcome their fear, whether it's founded or not.
Okay, so.
So I gave up that idea.
Okay, we will table this until the next meeting where we can discuss it. And, after we review our transportation plan. And, we'll go from there. And I think if you do move forward and develop a board, get a board established, feasibility study is something that they would probably, consider and really look more at the nitty-gritty of the whole proposal, so.
If we can find somebody willing to pay for it, I'd be glad to have it done.
Yeah.
But feasibility studies cost money.
They do,
And-
but
and
that would be
which we don't
something
have.
for the
Yeah.
board that you develop to determine
Yeah.
and see if there's some kind
Yeah,
of.
we'll have to
support.
talk, that's something we would have to do as a, I can't do that as an individual.
Right, right,
But I do know that they cost a lot of money.
right. So all of the details of your project, though, would be determined, worked out by your board,
That's,
whereas all we would be responsible for would be providing you a letter of support.
just so that we can apply for a grant.
Exactly.
That's so that, to make the grant application more successful.
Right,
And I'm trying to cut it, I'm trying to get that's what I'm trying to do now, is get the bus service big enough to succeed, but not so big that it costs so much that it could fail because it's too big. I would rather start small have success with it, and then people from other areas say, well, we'd like it too. Well, if people ride this one, we'll add a bus. It's easy to add another route.
So again, that's something that you would be discussing within your board.
That's what,
and
that's how
not-
that would
that's
be
not
up to
for us
the, those,
determine.
the board would be making that
Right,
decision.
exactly,
But that would be after we got the grant.
right.
After the grant is secured and the thing is started up, and there'll be enough money to run it for 1 year. Let's pay all the people, now you also gotta pay, you said a building. Now, the building, I know where there's a building right now that would be perfect for it.
Okay, well, when you have a building, once you get your program
Yeah.
going, then you would come to us.
Yeah.
Once the program's established, then you would come
Would
back to us.
would it be for a building that's already there, or one that needs to be built?
It depends, and you would, work with, Jeff Drew on that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, but as far as, we may not have to build a building,
Right.
because right down here on Kennebec Street, there's a big equipment garage that's probably not being used by this new mill.
Again, that's something that you
Yeah.
will take up.
But you did ask about a
Right,
building,
but
so
you
we
won't
may
come
not
back
even
to
have
us
to build
Until
one.
that.
If,
until
but
that.
if that's if the mill wants to work with us.
Right.
So far, I'm not having any luck talking to them, they don't wanna talk to me.
Okay, so we will discuss this at our next meeting, and thank you very much for coming in
Well, thank you for
with us,
listening.
and good luck getting your board established,
Yeah.
once you have all your letters and your application for your grant.
That's what we're gonna try to do next, and of course, I'm gonna, before the selectmen, for guidance on that, because I wanna do it properly. I mean, if we've got a board, I want that board to say, okay, this is a Madison board, and we make decisions here. But as far as, well, we
And I
gotta
think
get
in
the
that
selectmen
case, he
help with
would
that.
probably work with you, yes. So
And
in that
already-
case, you would go back to, the town manager.
The town clerk has, Cheyenne, Stephen, she's already done a lot of work with grants. She's also agreed to, and the selectmen agreed that she could do it. She's also like an advisor to me on getting grants, so.
So it sounds like you're off to a good start on that.
Well,
and-
it's gotten more complicated than I thought, but that's okay.
So, and we'll be back in touch with you, Pete.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay, next item of new business, William Holmes from the art school has a plan to build the deck. The diagram was included in the packet. Was an application, go ahead and come on up here to the hot seat there. Distinguished guests, how's
Yes.
that? That would be good. So did you bring an application? Were you making an application with the town to build that?
I was told I had to come here.
So do we have,
I gave you all the paperwork.
I got it, I had a PBR, I filed a PBR.
I'm sorry, you did what?
Permit by rule from DEP,
Oh, okay.
which I was surprised I had to file that for a simple deck.
Okay. And have you heard anything back from them yet, or?
No, you don't hear for anything back from them unless they don't accept it.
Okay,
After 14 days, it's a legit permit if they don't contact you.
and when did you file that? Has it
Today.
been 14 days? Oh, today? Okay. So you still need to fill out an application, correct, Jeff?
Yeah.
It should be an application and the
Yeah.
materials, so we need to have that before we can move forward with any action on that. I do have a question though, so maybe we can answer some of the questions out here ahead of time. Was that, the deck that's on there now, there's currently an existing deck that's 4x6?
Correct.
Correct, okay. Was that added to that building at the time of construction, when that building was built initially, or was that deck added later?
It's always been there,
It's always been there, okay.
always been there. That building has not been modified footprint-wise
Mhm,
in the last 40, 50 years.
okay.
It's never been expanded.
And are there any other structures on that lot where that building is?
We have cottages all along the lake.
Okay,
They're not really distinctive lots.
okay.
We have quite a lot of acreage.
Okay. Alrighty, so, we cannot move forward until we have your application. So if you would give that, to complete that and give it to Jeff, and then, you can also let him know if you did or did not hear from the, DEP or anything on that. And, so we'll consider this at the next board meeting.
All right,
If he has your paperwork, so that'll be in, can't say 2 weeks because sometimes things change. So this is the 10th, it will be in 2 weeks on the 24th of this month. It would be the next board meeting.
Jeff, I didn't fill out a form at the time we talked about it, right? Or, I don't recall filling out a form, right? You're talking about a permit form, yes?
Right, and Jeff has all of that material, and so
Right.
we have, that has all of your information on it and what you plan to do. And then this would be attached to it,
Yes.
the document that you have.
Okay, so I gotta come back in 2 weeks.
Yes, and thank you very much for the diagram. It was very clear, and appreciate the measurements on this and location of the lake. So that was very helpful
All righty.
with what you have on here.
Could I ask a question before we break up?
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
I suspect Bill might be able to fill out this form while we're sitting here. So is there a form in the house that he could fill out? And can we progress with the rest of the agenda and see if he can make it by the time we're done? Would you want to do that,
Did
Bill?
you bring any
I'm
of the?
totally cool with that.
Do you have the application with you?
No,
Do you have an application with you?
Do we have those applications available online?
Yes, I'm sure they are.
Do you have a printer?
We do have them online?
I don't know.
I've never
Is
seen
it a
them.
site review application?
I was quite amazed with the DEP. I put my whole package together, got a large envelope, and I looked for the address where I'm supposed to send it to, and they don't take mail anymore. You have to email it. So I had to scan everything.
Is that it? Yeah. Yep, that is that. So we'll go ahead and fill that out and we'll move on. Thank you, Mark, excellent suggestion. Okay. Moving on to chapter 484, site review. Jeff, you had some materials for us on the site review tonight?
Please.
While he's handing that out, Madam Chair, I just want to let you know I found the email. You sent it out on April 10th, and you did include everybody on the board, except for Rich and Melanie, so I just forwarded it to them.
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful, thank you very much.
So if you guys want to look in your email at April 10th is the date that it went out. If you need it again, I can send it to you. I can forward it to you.
Okey dokey.
But I did find it.
Thank you very much. Mark, are you all set on that? Do you need me to resend that about the comprehensive plan?
I'll look, but I'm pretty sure I still have it.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure, Jay or Don have it, but we can check. Okay. So Jeff, do you want to lead us through what we provided here? And I'm sorry, Mark, you don't have this material to look at.
That's okay.
We'll make sure that you have it. It's potential additions to the site review, and then it looks like some Jeff, did you already start working through this?
Melanie did.
Pardon?
Mel did.
Oh, Melanie did, okay.
I had some spare time, so I figured I'd start.
You actually have script,
So the one in the metal binder, is our current site review.
okay.
The one stapled is the one Mel provided, and the one in your right hand there is additional statements that Mel provided.
Okay. So, Melanie, do you want to lead us through this?
Yeah, so I had a few extra hours. And I'd basically gone through, I'd taken the initial site review and I'd gone through and I just kind of cleaned it up as I'd done with some of our other ordinances, essentially like getting rid of extra code enforcement officer, changing it to CEO throughout, changing select min to select board, things like that. I'd also gone through and clarified some language as we discussed, like just basic things I'd noticed over the past few months, such as like timing things, trying to add more clarification around timing for permits, making sure like end of permit dates, end of project, things like that. There was a few things after I went through the first review of it, I went to a few other site review ordinances that I work with frequently, like Skowhegan's and Hollowell's, and looked at things I think they do really well, that we may want to consider adding to Madison. That's where the other paper and potential additions comes from, that I thought maybe we want to consider. And that's where I kind of stopped my review, because I figured I didn't want to get too deep into it without giving you guys a chance to really see where the major issues lie from the planning board, and what you guys really want to focus on with these revisions.
Okay. All right, so,
No. Thing is,
so how would you recommend that we do this? We just want to take a portion at a time each meeting to kind of look at this?
That might be
or-
the best way to do it, because it's long.
Mhm.
So if we want to start just going through it
7, but.
as we see,
Mhm.
we can kind of go through that. So if we want to kind of start with Town of Madison, Chapter 484 site review, the red line version, I can go through and we can kind of discuss the edits. So this was just essentially, you see the first few, that's just me kind of cleaning things up, making things consistent. As we get to applicability, I just wanted to change some of the wording on there. I also added, at the end of that section, you'll see, or which exceeds 35 feet in height, exclusive of flagpole antenna intended for non-commercial use. I just added that to be specific. We can take that out if you don't want to. For number 3, I felt that the commercial, retail, industrial was not super specific, so I kind of wanted to be a little more clear of what an expansion of an existing use to non-residential or structure would be, instead of just calling it commercial or retail, being more specific with, or more broad, I guess you would say, with non-residential buildings. So moving on to page 2, I added an H on that for the conversion of an existing use in whole or not to a non-residential use as well. I just also clarified, this chapter is not applied to the following, just kind of trying to clean that up and clarify it a little more. I also did add to number 2, including accessory buildings and structures on individually owned lots. That is something that comes in with LD 2003, with accessible buildings and structures, or accessory buildings and structures. Going down to page 3, with amendments, I kind of tried to clarify a little bit more about amendments to site plans, or amendments to this, or amendments of this ordinance. So, and how that process works for amendments to this ordinance. The application process doesn't really change until you get to, I added section F which would allow the planning board to hold on-site inspections and investigations as needed, as part of the application process, if they felt that that would be needed. With public hearing, section G, I kind of just outlined the purpose of public hearing more and how that works, and kind of just specifically added more about what the purpose of it is, what is expected from the applicant, etc. For section 48(4)(8), limitations of approval, this is where I really wanted to kind of clear up and add more on timing, specifically requesting of extensions. You'll see in number 2 there. So if the applicant may request an extension of the approval deadline prior to the expiration of the period, such request must be in writing and must be made to the planning board. The planning board may grant up to 2 6-month extensions to the periods if the approved plan conforms to the ordinance and affects the time the extension is granted, and any and all federal and state approvals and permits are current. So that was just one thing, just trying to figure out the limitations on approvals there. You'll see throughout that I've kind of highlighted the numbering because I do have to go back through and fix the numbering. It's kind
Okay.
of off. So again, no major revisions for the next several pages. Until the fee schedule, I did add a little note about the fees and what the intended costs are for, and that it's not refundable, just a little bit of a note there.
Okay.
And not much else changed until we get down to, again, just kind of correcting, adding more specific numbers to things.
We've been doing a lot of cleanup on this.
Yeah, it was mostly just kind of like adding the words for numbers in front of, and then adding parentheses, a lot of just like overall cleanup.
So it looks like most of those changes were at the beginning
Yeah,
of this, so, okay, great.
so that was it. What I was proposing, the ones that I had gotten through that I thought we may want to consider adding was to site plan like criteria review. There's one about pedestrian circulation, and this is specifically in larger developments, specifically like larger retail, and asking for like sidewalks to connect to major roadways, things like of that sort. So that's one thing I was specifically thinking of with developments that may be closer to towns, especially forcing people to connect their sidewalks with interior circulation to the town sidewalks. Neighborhood compatibility, I thought this might be a good one to add specifically as we've been talking about the cannabis stores and other different developments coming into town, really ensuring that any site plans that come before here are compatible with the neighborhoods that they're in and the buildings that they're next to. Same thing with performance standards, buffering of adjacent uses. That's another one that I've heard come up quite a bit in my time at the planning board so far. Especially, again, where a potential safety hazard to children is likely to arise, a physical barrier sufficient to deter small children. I thought that might be a good one to add. And again, the limitations of approval. And then also the incorporation of an approved plan at the end of a project. I thought that might be a good one to add, just to ensure that we are keeping up with the projects at the end, and doing due diligence to make sure we're getting those as-built drawings. That's what I came up with thus far, but again, we can always add more.
Okay. All righty, thank you, that was quite a bit of work on that, and appreciate the efforts that you took for that, for us. So, the next planning board meeting, we should be able to, I think there'll be time to go over this. Everybody will have a copy by then. We'll be mailing it out to Don and Jay. Okay, so give everyone a chance to read through this and then bring any questions back at the next meeting. And, or if anyone has any additional ideas that need to be in here, bring those as well. And we can have this one done really fast, thanks.
Hopefully. At least by June, right?
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up, which would tie into this as well, if you want to go on to the next, any other business to come before the board.
Not yet, because I want to come back to this, so.
Oh, right,
things
yep,
can wait.
okay, yep.
Okay, so we'll do that. All right, so we'll have this on the next agenda. I don't think it'll take a long time
Oh, it's pretty much almost done.
to do that,
Alright.
so. Okay, so back to this. Okay, so the proposed use will be other, you might want to fill that in. Okay, did he pay the fee?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Okay. If you would complete the proposed uses of the property there, and then I will pass that on to the rest of the group. Thank you. Okay, so according to your map that you provided for us, the front of the cottage is 34 feet from
From the high water line.
from high water line. Okay, excellent. So according to 4478-12C1D2, in the shoreline zoning, you have up to 30% of the square footage of the footprint that you can expand upon. And so with the square footage of the main structure of the cottage was 1460. You had on your original 24 square feet, so that's 1484 square feet. 30% gives you 445, a little over 445 square feet that could be added on, and you're well within that at 104 square feet. Any comment on that? Mark, did you do any calculations on this?
Yeah, he's well within the 30%.
Okay,
And he stated that it had not been expanded in the last, 50 or 70 years.
right, you said the deck
So-
was,
And 1989 is the cutoff, so he's good.
right, and the deck was part of that initially, so, the 4x6 deck, so, so still that was really, we're within that. And you are not going closer to it, you're not making it more non-conforming, you are
No,
going
just
lateral.
going sideways.
Right, so that does not seem to be an issue there. And of course, if you permit by rule, you know, if the DEP comes back and says, or you don't hear from them that there's an issue, then it would not be an issue for us either at that point. Robin, do you have any comments on this?
Do I sign this?
Not yet.
I
No,
don't.
I did.
Can't sign it until we approve it. Okay, Craig, do you have any questions on the addition here? Mark, do you have any questions on the addition?
Yeah, just one for Bill. What category of PBR did you file, Bill?
Action adjacent to protected natural resource.
And that's only required if you expect some of the soil or the building materials to wash into the lake.
I do not.
Yeah. So I think you're good because you're not on, over, or in the water.
Mhm.
So I think the PBR is really not necessary, so we shouldn't have to wait 14 days for it.
All right.
Because I don't think when you added, let's see, you did, oh gosh, years ago, did you reconstruct the deck that was on one of those buildings? I can't remember. And we had all gone out there to take a look.
Oh, the little red building?
Yes,
That little red building, we actually lifted it, we tore off a bit part of the back and rebuilt that. And we ended up moving the building back 37 inches because that was, we had to be 6 feet from the post for the deck had to be 6 feet from the high water line. And I had proposed moving it back 3 feet initially, and then we got into some push and pull. And then you guys said I was gonna move it back 10 feet, but I'd have to really dig into the ground
right,
to do
it
that.
wasn't practical for that.
And then we came to a compromise that it'd be 6 feet from the high water line, the post for the deck. And I said, who's gonna determine the high water line? And they said, Bobby, the code enforcement officer. And so I went and I looked at what I thought was high water line and made a little mark. And Bob came and picked the same spot, which was really good. I measured it, and it was 37 inches, and that's what we did. We rolled it back, and then we added on in the back, and it's still nestled in trees. We disturbed very, very little there. It looks like it's always been there.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, and did you have a permit by rule then?
No.
The board didn't request that, no?
No, I've only had
Think
2
so.
permit by rules over the years, and they were for wetlands.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, so need a motion to approve this application, okay? Who's second?
Doesn't matter, one of us approved, one of us second.
I know, but I needed a name for a second person, so.
I think I heard Craig. No?
So it's Rich.
Any questions or comments on this? Hearing none, all in favor? Mark?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
So now you can sign it.
now you can sign it.
Now you can sign it.
All right. Excellent idea about having him, I'm glad we have the application, Mark, available here.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mark.
No work.
Yeah.
So what's his next step?
I gotta come in and pay him in the morning.
Yes. Okay, other than that, I guess it's good to go, right?
Yes.
Oh, I need to sign that too.
We left you the first copy.
And Mark, you can sign this when you come into the office at some point.
Thank
Be able to do it virtually someday, just put it on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much for making this happen.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Jeff, you'll
Yes.
be in the morning?
Good
I
luck.
will, yep,
All right.
7:30.
All right.
I'll probably see you around 8:15 or so.
I'll have the coffee on.
All right. Thank you all.
Okay, moving on to any other business to come before the board.
Oh, where did my paper go? Where's that? My hand.
Give it to him.
While you're looking for it, can I talk?
Yes.
Yes,
So I have two things. One of them may be what Jeff's looking for.
I found
The
it.
other one is, Dan McKenney called me and said that he has a concern about the setback rules in Madison being too much So 15 feet on either side is too much, in his opinion. And I told him if he had an issue with it, he needed to come to the planning board and discuss it. But just so you know that, give you a heads up that that's gonna be coming your way.
Okay.
It may be coming your way.
I explained to Dan that the 15-foot setbacks is because of, and it's standard to a lot of communities, it's, the setback was established because of fire safety.
Yeah, he said in Skowhegan it was 5 feet, so.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I had was, the food trucks.
Yep, that was.
Go.
Okay, so in the town of Madison, we now have 4 food trucks. One's a coffee and 3 are meals. Meals on wheels, sort of, kind of in a way. And we've had a few complaints. Regarding the food trucks, people wanting to know, do they have permits? Do they go before the planning board? Do they do this and that and the other? The state has very strict rules and require inspections, and the town does not. In the state rules, it stipulates that if the town has, what's the word I'm looking for?
Local ordinances, local
Local
regulations.
ordinances, right, then they have to be either equal to or more stringent than the state rules, but not more lax. So, is that something the planning board wants to look into?
I've been having questions about those because I wondered if they sought permits, you know,
They all
for
have
health,
permits.
they're all licensed
They're all
and
licensed,
been inspected.
and I went to each and every single one of them, and I said that it's not a requirement by the town. However, it would be nice if they stop by the town office with their licensing, their certificates from the state, and we made copies of that and put it in with their folders.
They do need to have a Madison business license.
Right, and, yeah, they all stop by and
They
do
all have a
the
Madison business
DBA.
license.
So why would we wanna do it then?
He's bringing it because it was my question as to, do we want to have any local regulations concerning mobile food trucks and mobile food vendors?
And if they're licensed for the state,
But that's a general license and that's for health and safety. Purposes,
but
and
the
they've been
town would
inspected
be
for food
liable if
inspected.
anything were to happen, food poisoning or anything, right, at that point?
No, we wouldn't, but they need to be licensed, should be inspected.
Yeah. And the other question was, in terms of location, neighborhood things. One of the concerns that came before Jeff was the new one that just opened on Jones Street. They're in their backyard and, you know, they're next to neighbors and there's a camper, and so there may be things that the town should look into, in terms of regulating location, size.
Meanwhile, keeping in mind, we don't have zoning.
No, but this is different than that. I mean, it's, again, right, we don't have zoning, and so, again, we kind of accomplish that through ordinances. And there is a concern, I would say, certainly a safety concern where these are located. And in that case, we would have to have an ordinance to indicate where they should and should not be available for sale. And plus, if it's in somebody's backyard, then what about the traffic?
In a local neighborhood.
It's actually in the front yard, isn't it?
It's in the front yard, the camper's in the backyard.
Okay. I have visions of the food truck and the camper next to each
Yeah.
other.
Well, it's kind of an L-shaped.
Their property actually goes from Jones Street to street behind, what is that?
Nichols.
Nichols.
Um,
So it's a long property, but it's a weird shaped property.
But like I said, though, it's like the food portion and then there's another trailer or something, it's all black.
That's the storage.
Oh.
They haven't opened that yet.
You know, so other concerns would be parking, accessibility, safety, distance. You know, not all of these things are covered by the state,
Right,
and those are concerns that I would have.
Don't you already have those on the books, like residential is residential and commercial is commercial?
No,
No,
we
we
have
don't.
that zoning and we don't have
Yeah,
zoning.
We don't have zoning.
correct.
What do you do with the guy that comes in for Saturday night and leaves? Stan's French fries, let's use that one for an example.
That's a different thing, though. isn't it?
Stan's, well, that's still a food
No, it's
truck.
the
It's
same
a
thing.
mobile food truck.
Okay, but Stan's is always right out.
So
Usually
you're gonna have to
downtown,
be more
it's-
inclusive on this.
No, because he's already generally putting his truck, out in the downtown area there, so it's usually easily accessible.
I have
So
a
it's
funny
accept-
feeling- I have a funny feeling Stan will never be back to Madison.
Yeah, does anybody know why?
Well,
So,
so anyway, the other thing is, you know, even if they are just a weekend mobile unit, that they should at least have a license to operate in Madison, that the location should be, you know, not monitored, but defined within certain parameters, so many feet on either side,
Yeah,
parking, availability.
handicap parking.
Well, I don't know about handicap parking, but I mean, you know, just, and you don't wanna have them to be necessarily drive-through things, but,
right,
We'll be
You
on the road.
and
Right, it'll be
then,
out on the road, yeah.
yeah, and then and not being in the road, so, even the, smoking good times, you know, the barbecue guys, Frazier,
Oh, right, yes.
yeah,
Right.
you know, anybody that comes to town.
So
So,
I forgot all about them.
you know, during Madison Anson days, we're gonna have a lot of them, so, but, you know,
Melanie,
just something to think about.
Melanie?
If you'd like, I could try to find another example of an ordinance from another municipality that
Yes,
covers
that's-
this.
yeah.
And
Yes.
we could start there, and I could provide that to the board, and then we could take what we like and don't like, and then go from there.
Perfect. I was going to ask you to do that, so I'm glad you did.
Great minds think alike.
Yes, it's always easy
I think
when
we all had
someone's
that
already
same
done it.
idea.
Why reinvent the wheel, you know,
Right.
if you can take something that's there and modify it to your town's needs, that's much easier, okay? Thank you for bringing that up, because every time when I've seen these last two food trucks come up, you know, I really have concerns, and particularly about licensing, so I'm glad you mentioned they are licensed.
Yep.
So,
Oh, what if a kid's playing on the street, you know, and somebody, that because they had to pay $3 extra on their french fries or whatever, they just drive off mad and somebody gets hurt and, I mean,
That
Do you
would-
have an
they-
application
That would be on
fee for
them.
that?
What's that?
Do you have an application fee for food trucks?
No.
We haven't.
No, just a business license.
Yeah, just the $10,
Do we pay for that?
it's a $10 DBA fee, one time fee.
Yeah.
So you know who's coming along.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good.
I'm glad that they came to you and asked about, you know, license or fees, what have you, that's, you know, that's encouraging. Okay, any other business to come before the board?
Did we want to talk about the signage?
What signage?
Like the island out at Klaus Corner?
Oh, the
Oh.
signs that you said,
Oh,
Right.
that's DOT, so.
Right, but then something came up last night about some other location in town.
Oh, yeah, it was the end of Father All Road and 201A, Old Point Avenue. So there's that little triangle opposite the roofing place or whatever it is now.
RTD.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's really, it's on the Father All Road, not on Old Point Avenue. So it's not on, in my opinion, it's not on a state road.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, if we want to do something on a local level, that would require a local ordinance to.
Is that not covered by our sign ordinance?
I don't recall, I remember in our sign ordinance, it talked about temporary signs and,
Mhm.
I was going over some.
Right, government and so on, but there was nothing in there about commercial, other than that, you know, on the commercial property, there's signage, but there was,
On private property is one thing.
right.
But on town-owned
On
property.
Town-owned property
town-owned,
is
it was-
another, state-owned property is another. Election signs are
Right,
a whole different topic.
right.
And then, it's just, let's see, I had an email the other day about signage, that's the one I gave you on, someone had, some towns have, timeframes. You can't have them more than so many weeks, 3 weeks out or
Right, and
whatever.
we've addressed that in our ordinance.
In our ordinance,
So we
and
might
then-
need to take a look at that again. And it's ready to go to town meeting,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So we should,
Well, has it had a public hearing, the sign ordinance? Because I think that one needs a public hearing.
not by us, but
Okay, and
it's
we
the
haven't, select board has not done a public hearing on that one either.
Yeah.
So that one would go, we have plenty of time on that, because that one would go to
Next
town
June.
meeting in June.
Mhm. Okay, so we should take a look at that again, and I'm not sure I have the most latest copy of that proposed ordinance, but then I'll also look at our current ordinance and see if that's addressed, so I wanna do that.
I don't know if I have that here.
So, I mean, that's something that you can certainly go back and look at
Right.
later, Jeff. But,
Yep.
you know, if you give me, if someone could send me a copy of the one that was sent to the
Yeah, I
select,
think,
of the one that's finalized and ready to go to,
Audrey was doing that one.
pardon?
Audrey, was that her name? Yeah, that was something she was working on.
I can
No,
take
we
care-
did the sign ordinance.
Yeah, we did it on,
We
before
did it.
Hannaford put up the new sign.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, that's, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we did that, and it was sent to the select board, so I don't know if any additional changes were made to that or not.
That was done, they accepted it in March or April. So, I mean, but we can revisit, as, the planning board can revisit and resubmit it to the select board, because it hasn't gone to the town yet.
So we should do that.
You've got the electronic copy on that.
I'm sure it is.
Okay. Would you send that to me, Jeff, please? Okay. good.
I'll send it to Mel too, and,
I just had to do a deep dive on the state laws for Skowhegan, so I'll take a look at it and just
Okay.
recommend anything I see.
Perfect. We might have to go back through the selectmen again, but that's fine.
That's fine.
Okay, moving on, board member concerns. Mark, do you have any concerns?
Nope.
Robin?
No.
Rich?
No.
I have none? Okay, next board meeting is September
September 24th.
24. And it is 8:50, we'll round it up.
750.
7:50, sorry. I was
That was a
looking at the
long
number
meeting.
8, yes,
I was
it
like,
was.
whoa.
7:50. Okay.
I'm thinking, oh, overtime, yes.
So the meeting is adjourned.
I did that on purpose.
You're not allowed overtime.